Welcome back to Set Streets and Eats, guys. I'm Chris Bauer. I am so excited to be in front of this building. You Chuck E. Cheese fans know exactly where I'm at. I am in San Jose, California. I am gonna go check out what basically is considered the original location of Chuck E. Cheese. The original was not too far from here. It has long since been torn down. This has been here since the very early 80s, since the very early days of Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater. This building actually used to be a toy store, among other things. I think it was called the Magical Kingdom or Magical Palace or something like that. And the reason I bring that up is these three windows here in the front of this building, or the back of the building actually, they face the 101 freeway. They had three huge toy soldiers in them. Imagine like the New York store at FAO Schwartz, the toy store used to have similar big toy soldiers in them. Those toy soldiers actually still exist. They were tore out, of course, when Chuck E. Cheese had the building, or got the building. They are now at the Stockton Children's Museum, so you can still see those today. But in the middle, they put a 30-foot statue of Chuck E. Cheese, the man himself, winking at the highway, winking and waving, everyone on the 101 freeway, telling everybody to come see this Chuck E. Cheese. It's a two-story Chuck E. Cheese, which I've never been in one of those. And Chuck E. Cheese is inviting me and everyone else on this freeway to come in there and check it out. And I hope you guys will join me. Let's travel. So, fun fact, well, it's not really a fact, but there's a rumor. So up above me is a third floor. This Chuck E. Cheese has 3 floors. 2 of them are open to the public. The third one was used for a specific purpose, which I'll tell you about when we're inside. But the third floor has nothing in it today. It's mostly just storage and whatnot. But it's said that there's a ghost of a little girl that possibly looks out those windows from time to time. And it's said that the girl fell to her death when this was a toy store. Not really sure if that's true or not, but that's the rumor on the interwebs, that sometimes that third floor window has the shape or the image of a girl in it. Is it true? I don't know. It's my first time here. So as you can see, they've already gotten the 2.0 remodel. They got it a while ago. This is quite a marquee store for them. They put in, of course, the dance floor, which, by the way, this is my first time seeing the dance floor. I haven't seen it in any other locations yet, so I'm glad I waited for this to be the first time. But so they had I don't know if it was a Circles of Light stage or a Studio C series for a while, but I'm not exactly sure when they got rid of it. But they had a single animatronic Chucky in here for a while, and that was once they took that out, that was it, of course. I'm not sure when the full band was taken out. That's long gone, so I'm sure it looks different on the inside than it used to. But this is easily the biggest Chuck E. Cheese I've ever been into by far. There's no comparison, honestly. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. But as you can see, it's basically a giant arcade now. Dance floor, of course, party area. But we're gonna go check some of it out. The originals. $19.90. I've got one of those pieces here in the kitchen. I was able to get a tour of the third floor of this store. So yeah, there's the first 2 floors that are open to the public, that are filled with video games, party areas, all kinds of great stuff. And then the third floor, which is now used primarily for storage, used to be where Chuck E. Cheese University was located. This is where they used to train all their regional and district and general managers. Up on the third floor there was many offices and classrooms, and over time that got transitioned out, and storage took over the 3rd floor. When this store opened though, the whole location had this carpet in there. And of course the bottom 2 floors have had many remodels over the years, so that carpet is long gone and just a memory down there. But up here on the 3rd floor, it hasn't been touched, which is so cool to be able to see this little snapshot of 80s history right here on the floor. This beautiful carpet. I know it's a bit dirty from years of storage and traffic, but it still has great color and pops, and it's definitely one of a kind now. This store was actually the 3rd location of the Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theaters. It opened in December of '84. The first location was, of course, over on Winchester Road. Then they opened the 2nd location over on Kozer Road. That location actually closed during the pandemic. And of course, the original Winchester Road location closed many years before that. So this is the last remaining San Jose specific location, making it at least in homage to the first location of Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater. These murals were super cool. They were commissioned when the store was new back in the early 80s. They hung in the store for many years. They're illustrations of just the different characters from the main stage and the side cabarets engaged in different activities together. My favorite, of course, was the Chuck scolding the king about designing a mousetrap. They eventually were remodeled out, and they've been hanging on the wall up here ever since. This Munch mural was as if Munch was trying to work on a computer. Inside the computer, these little characters are quickly assembling what he was typing. This is definitely pre-internet, done in the early 90s. So this was very cool. So back in the mid-80s, this mural hung in the restaurant downstairs for several years. One day, someone took a photo and sent it to the Disney Corporation, and then on October 13th, 1989, this store received a cease and desist letter from the Walt Disney Company, telling them that they were infringing on Disney's copyright by using Mickey, Minnie, the Cinderella mice, and several other Disney characters. Chuck E. Cheese corporate ordered the immediate takedown of the mural and threw it in the dumpster, and an employee was able to retrieve it, and it's been up here on the wall ever since. It's really cool. It's missing just a couple little pieces, but it's one of a kind, and I think it's pretty neat that these are all part of the Royal Order of Rodents. I didn't realize there were so many different mouse characters in pop culture. I think somebody ought to make some of these ROR buttons though. Back downstairs, I was shown where Madame Oink's cabaret stage used to sit. And then this was really cool. They had an outdoor sign that was on a different Chuck E. Cheese in the Bay Area that closed down. And they took that outdoor sign and put it here on the 3rd floor over the games, and it just really pops. I think it was really cool. So you can imagine, because they have so much more room here than other Chuck E. Cheese's, their games, they have everything. And they're gonna be getting even more, actually. Kind of sad, but also kind of good for them. One of the real identifiable things about this Chuck E. Cheese is this quadrant of stairs. There's these 4 sets of stairs that come together here between the 1st and 2nd floor. And they are gonna be tearing these out. I was talking to one of the employees. They're tearing this out, putting an elevator in and a separate staircase. And this area is gonna be all the tall games that they can't fit underneath the other floors. So games like this, they'll have a lot more of them. So I got to see a little bit of that 3rd floor that I was talking about when I was outside. Saw a piece of the Studio C stage that used to be in here. They, of course, after Studio C adopted the Circles of Light stage, which was the last Chucky, they had a 16 M Chucky in here, and then that was the last animatronic they had. They updated to the dance floor actually not that long ago, but they removed the Chuck E. years ago. So they really didn't have any animatronics in here, just the arcade, up until they got the dance floor over the pandemic, or just before the pandemic. So we went around upstairs just to see some of the stuff they still have left. The token room was mind-boggling. For all you token collectors, they got them. They got a whole room full of them.
This was such a great tour. I was really appreciative of the employee that was able to give me a tour. I got to see so many cool things on the third floor and just in and around. It was very neat. It's one of those things that you don't always get access to, and I was really thrilled with it.
They've even got an app. 4,000. 5,000, what? Almost 5,000. Come on, 10. 10,000. Almost 10,000. Oh, come on. There it is. Come on now. Yeah. There it is. Oh, 10,000, there it is. 10,000, what? All right, maybe all that practice at these Chuck E. Cheese's is paying off. Just saying. That's an oldie. Teletubbies, I do not understand them. There we go. Look at the old Chuck E. Cheese trolley car. Now that is cool. What? How cool is that? Whew. So unique to this location, they have these display windows. They have different, they change the displays out per season and just for different things in general. I like this movie thing this one has. Got those on the walls, that's pretty cool. But back in the day, the reason those were put in was the employee was telling me that the line used to be around the block, around the building, I should say. So they put some of the sideshows, like Madame Oink or the King or whatever. I think the Warblettes was the one he was mentioning. They put them out in the windows so they would entertain the people in line at Chuck E. Cheese. Man, wasn't the 80s cool. Can you imagine a line outside of a Chuck E. Cheese or a Showbiz? I don't even remember that when I was a kid, but some of the bigger cities like here in San Jose, I'm sure that's exactly what it was. Me being from a smaller city like Flint, Michigan, didn't really have lines for Showbiz or Chuck E. Cheese, so that'd been something to see, but it's neat that they had them out there entertaining the guests while they waited in line. All the ticket counters behind me, the merch rooms, the store, the pizza. This Chuck E. Cheese is more like a Dave & Buster's. It's awesome. If you haven't got a chance to see it, come check it out. This one has the Chuck E. Mount Rushmore and an old car. One of the old cars that you could ride in with the Chuckster. Old Chuck. That's cool. That was a cool visit. This is definitely the nicest looking Chuck E. Cheese, and it looks to be one of the nicest Chuck E. Cheese ever built. The building's really cool. At one point it used to be a nightclub, after it was a toy store, and then it was a church at one point, and then the Chuck E. Cheese ended up being in here in the early 80s. So it's been a lot of things, but Chuck E. Cheese has been here the longest, and it's a cool building, man. So I really enjoyed my visit into here. It's cool that this was the, I guess it was sort of the third incarnation of this, the Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater back in the late 70s, early 80s, because they had another one after the original closed. They had another one open before this one. That one closed during the pandemic. So this is now the other San Jose location, which is basically the original. Also, real quick, I went over and visited the original location of the original Pizza Time Theater. Check this out. So behind me, right here on that corner where that mall is now, was the very first Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater. Nolan Bushnell, co-founder of Atari, had been selling games for close to 10 years with Atari. They were selling them into bars and some arcades, but they were kind of shady places. They weren't places you would want young kids to hang out. Families didn't feel safe taking them there. So he wanted to create a string of arcades to facilitate that, have a place where families could come, see a show, eat some pizza, and play some video games. And the very first location opened right behind me on that corner, May 17, 1977. So yeah, it was really cool. And I gotta thank Damon Braylon of Smithy Super Service Station for helping me make this visit happen. And if you haven't checked out a two-story Chuck E. Cheese, especially with all the history that's in this one, you need to come check it out. And that upstairs, that's where they did the Chuck E. Cheese University and they trained all their managers. And come on, that carpet was worth the price of admission. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.